My friends, Trump announced the complete disarmament of Hamas. Pay attention, everyone, all the weapons, all the tunnels, all the armed groups in the Gaza Strip, because it's not just Hamas over there. For those who think it's just Hamas, there are others, other terrorist organizations as well. And the world woke up today with the word historic on the screen. But pay close attention to what happened in the following hours, everyone, because that's what this whole live stream is about. Local time 3:35. Israel time, the 31st, okay? For those who asked, the date is always up here. And hours after this announcement, the most celebrated document of the year already had, we can say, 3 cracks. The first came from within Hamas itself, and right after that, they also made another statement. And the last one came from the Israeli side. And I'll show you all 3, one by one, in a moment, so don't go anywhere. And there are also the behind-the-scenes details. Axios revealed what happened in a room in Tehran during Ali Khamenei's funeral days before this agreement. A scene that explains why this document exists, and I'll tell you the whole story in a moment. And while all this is happening, Iran spent the night hitting Kurdish targets in northern Iraq, and just a short while ago it fired 6 ballistic missiles, but no one knows exactly where those ballistic missiles ended up. And more drones also targeted Kuwait. We'll talk about that in a moment too. And they closed off their own southern coast, folks. In the Strait of Hormuz region, that entire coast was closed for 2 months. And to wrap up, I've saved an Arabic word from 1,400 years ago, a word that one of the greatest experts on the Arab world here in Israel used today to evaluate this agreement between Hamas, the United States, and Israel. And it's this word that will tell us if this paper is worth anything. You need to learn this word to be able to understand all of this. Stay with me until the end, and if you're already here, go ahead and leave your like, your thumbs up on the channel so you don't forget to do it later. And now, let's get to the announcement, folks. Trump published it, okay? He published it, and I'll translate the main parts here because it was very long. Quote, "Today, the Peace Council reached a historic agreement for the complete disarmament of Hamas and all other armed groups in Gaza. The agreement will be carried out in carefully structured phases. As the disarmament is completed, Israeli forces will withdraw and the International Stabilization Force will work together with a new Palestinian police force. Gaza will finally be in the hands of a new Palestinian government that serves its people. The threat that emerged from Gaza on October 7 will not be allowed to rebuild itself." End quote. That was Trump who just published that actually in the early morning, shortly after the end of our live stream yesterday. And he also thanked the 3 mediators by name: Egypt, Qatar, and Turkey. And for those who watched yesterday's live stream, you already know, last night on the live stream, you already know the terms because I brought them here firsthand. And today, the official stamp came, along with new details, the fine print that the press here in Israel published this morning. First, who put this together, folks? The name is Nikolai Miladinov, who is the representative of the Peace Council for Gaza. Remember that Trump created this Peace Council? So this is the guy who coordinates all of that. There were months of negotiations out of the spotlight. Everyone kept asking, David, is it the Gaza Strip? So these talks happened away from the world press. Hamas was repeatedly taking a military beating throughout this period outside that room. They were always beaten the same way. Nikolai Miladinov himself sent a message today. He said the following: "What is written in the agreement matters, but the real test is what happens from now on." The man who wrote the document is already warning here that the paper is just the beginning. Second, the schedule is within weeks. Hamas starts handing over their weapons. Guys, this is huge, okay? Third, and this detail is worth its weight in gold, the handover is not just of weapons, it's light weapons. The pistols, heavy weapons, which are missiles, rockets, and whatever is still left there. And the tunnels, guys, the maps of the tunnels, the maps, this is fantastic. Those who spent more than 30 years digging underground are now handing over the blueprint of their own lair. That's what they're going to do. Fourth, where does all this go, guys? Where do all the weapons go? The weapons go to a depot controlled by the international force where they go through a process of permanent deactivation, okay? The weapon won't be sold or taken somewhere else, it will be deactivated. The weapon is rendered useless in a way that it will never work again. It's not just putting the rifle away in a drawer, it's literally turning the rifle into scrap metal, guys. And fifth, most important for us here, the plan is not based on trust. Every step Israel takes is conditioned on Hamas taking a step first. Hamas needs to do something before Israel does its part afterward. Israel also keeps the option to resume combat in writing if any violations occur during this period. Basically, whoever wrote this agreement shares our perspective here on the channel. Never trust and always verify everything 10 times. And now let's move on to the three things we can call cracks that appeared in the first few hours because they tell the other half of the story. Crack number one, Hazi Ahmad. He is a member of the Hamas negotiation team, and he stated the following just now: "We did not say disarmament, we did not say handing over weapons, and we do not agree with any Israeli involvement." That's what he said. And right after that, just now, it came out that Hamas officially announced, the Hamas organization, that it is willing to discuss including the issue of heavy weapons in the agreement. But they condition this on the cessation of fighting, on Israel's withdrawal from the Gaza Strip, on the reconstruction of the Gaza Strip, on the deployment of an international protection force, on the disarmament of militias that, according to him, were created by Israel, and on the creation of a state and on the creation of a Palestinian state. Claiming Israel created Islamic Jihad is ridiculous, right? That's his point here. Basically, as long as Israel stays, they won't act at all. That's how I interpret this. But if Israel leaves, they're open to discussing heavy weapons. Crack number two. Islamic Jihad rushed to deny the details that were published, saying they are not accurate. Crack number three, and this one is from our side. An Israeli source told the Jerusalem Post today that Israel rejects the plan as it was announced, and the reason is very simple to understand. Israel only accepts one order of events. First, Hamas hands over its weapons. Only after that, folks, and the strip is demilitarized. Then, the army withdraws from the yellow line. In other words, the whole discussion now is about the order of things. Who is going to do what first? Never the other way around. That's exactly the position I already explained to you here on the map yesterday. This map we're looking at is the map of the Gaza Strip, folks. It's the map of the Gaza Strip, and that purple part there, it might be purple. That's where the Israeli army is right now. Okay? And an American official gave the newspaper his take on this, the mood in Israel. According to him, Israel is suspicious of the agreement, but there isn't much they can do except wait and see if this agreement will work. Because we know it depends on Trump, right, folks? Trump is behind all of this. I also somewhat disagree with the American official, and I'll explain why. Israel is the one who controls the pullback, folks. It is Israel that is holding it up and can keep holding it up. Without verified demilitarization, the army won't leave the yellow line, and without Israel pulling back, the agreement won't move forward. It's as simple as that. In other words, Israel isn't on the sidelines watching this happen. It's actually the safety lock, we could say, the real blockade of the whole process. Then you ask me, right, David, so what now? What's it going to be? Trump announced one thing and Hamas is denying it, and on the other side, they're saying it has to work their way. Who's lying here? Let us sift this together, because the answer is more interesting than it seems. Israeli sources who are following the talks explained to Channel 14 here in Israel. Okay? What is going on? These statements from Hamas serve only one purpose: to lessen public humiliation. Think about it with me, guys. It's the same Iranian strategy. The organization agreed to hand over their weapons, agreed to hand over everything. The weapons, tunnels, tunnel map, and government. And how does a leadership explain this to the terrorist fighter and the terrorist supporter, right? Especially those from the flotillas and such, there in Gaza as well as in Judea and Samaria, who spent their whole life hearing that their weapon was sacred. How do they explain that? Talking tough on the inside. That's how Hamas always does it, and that's how it works, folks. Talking tough on the inside while signing for the outside world. In the end, maybe no one is lying here. There are two different audiences hearing two different speeches about the same document. That's what's happening now. And last night, here on the live stream, I also gave you an important warning. A very important warning. I said they can hand over all the weapons, but the terrorists will still be there with new uniforms and a new name. Do you remember that? And the example showed up in less than 12 hours, folks. This is the statement from the Hamas negotiator. Hamas signs the handover of weapons, and the Hamas representative goes public to deny what Hamas itself signed. That's what's happening now, folks. That's how it's happening. The weapon leaves their hands, but their mindset stays the same. Remember that? The terrorist will remain in the Gaza Strip. Just the same, folks. And now the behind the scenes I promised you. This story is also important. It's like something out of a movie, folks. The journalist there, Barak Ravid from Axios, remember the Axios news outlet? He spoke to two people who took part in these negotiations, insiders, and they told him how Hamas was pushed into signing this. Meanwhile, the three mediators kept pressing non-stop. Egypt, Qatar, and Turkey. Okay? Pay attention. And the key figure behind that pressure was the head of Egyptian intelligence, Hassan Rashad, who knows the head of Hamas in Gaza personally and spoke directly with him. Last night, you saw here how patient Egypt is with this Iranian axis after what happened at the Damietta port. Remember that? Egypt's statement was strong, folks. So just imagine the tone of those conversations. On the other side, Iran was trying to pull Hamas back. And this is where the scene from Khamenei's funeral comes in. A Hamas delegation traveled to Iran for the funeral of the former supreme leader, or of Iran's former lower leader. And there, according to Axios, this delegation met with commanders of the Revolutionary Guard. And the request that the Revolutionary Guard made to Hamas in that same room was the following: delay the signing as much as possible. Delay the signing as much as possible. Buy time. The day before yesterday, on the American network ABC, Netanyahu described this regime in a single sentence: they always lie, always cheat, and always play for time. 2 days later, it leaks that this is literally what the guard asked Hamas for at the funeral. And then comes the confirmation from the American side as well. An American official confirmed to Axios, Iran tried to get Hamas out of this deal with all its might, and Hamas decided not to obey at all. Guys, pay close attention to this because this is very important. And now you must be wondering, how do they know what was discussed at a funeral in Tehran? Isn't that what you're asking now? How do they know this really happened? Everyone who doesn't live in this world of espionage and all that really asks this kind of question because it's hard to believe, it's really hard to understand. But we're here to explain, guys. Pay close attention to this. Let me just close this little program that's popping up all the time. My friends, the world of intelligence services knows everything it wants to know. We know that, guys. Our cell phone is the real spy, okay? It listens to everything it wants to hear. That's how it is. And there in that room in Tehran, the leadership of the Revolutionary Guard was inside, right? And there were also people from Hamas. And you can be sure that someone outside heard every word that was spoken in there. And yesterday I told you, when the godfather goes down, which is Iran, the godson runs to the negotiating table. You remember that, right, guys? And today, proof of what happened behind the scenes came out. The godson disobeyed the godfather to his face inside the godfather's house at the godfather's funeral. He disobeyed the godfather in public, guys. That's what happened at that level with leaks to the whole world. It's something that this relationship hasn't seen in a long time. So, if this live stream is helping you see what the newspapers never show, do something now, guys. Send this live stream to 2 people who need to understand this day, because there are still people out there waving little flags and believing that Israel is losing this war. Hamas guys negotiating the surrender of their own rifles. Iran is getting hit from all sides. And that guy over there still standing strong, celebrating a victory that only exists in his fantasy world. So send this live stream to him, especially, who knows, maybe one day he'll finally get it. And while the Gaza document is circulating around the world, the fire on the Iranian side hasn't stopped for even a minute, guys. The United States did not hit Iran last night, just to make that very clear. There was no real American attack, at least not officially. No attack happened there. Do you think this Friday night today, guys, promises something big here in the region? What do you all think? I believe so. There's a strong chance, mainly because they did nothing yesterday. Let's review what's happening now and what occurred overnight, starting with the present. Just now, guys, there were reports of intense explosions in the Strait of Hormuz, okay? And there are still no details about who hit what in that region. Was it another ship trying to pass through? Is Iran attacking once again? Let's keep that on hold until we can confirm it. As soon as it's confirmed, I'll bring you the information about what was hit in the Strait of Hormuz. And Kuwait once again. The spokesperson for the Ministry of Defense of Kuwait announced that the country's forces identified and shot down several drones. Let me show you here. Here is Iran, Gaza Strip. Iran and Iraq also have a role here. They identified several hostile drones in the country, right, in Kuwait's airspace, since early this morning, Friday the 31st local time, 3:48. According to him, the strikes from the Iranian regime targeted vital and military facilities in the country. The debris from the intercepted drones fell and damaged some buildings, but there were no casualties. And the Ministry of Defense announced that the country's forces are at the highest level of readiness. So, let's hold on to this information from Kuwait because soon it will fit into an important revelation from the Wall Street Journal. Very important. Really, guys. And there's another report coming from Iraq as well. This one still without much explanation. Residents of a region near an oil field there, okay? The Al Ardab field. It's an oil field in Iraq. Pay attention, guys. This is serious, okay? They're reporting a toxic gas leak in the area. Hydrogen sulfide. And so far, neither the authorities nor the company that operates the field have commented on the cause or the size of this leak. Right? I'm not certain what's happening there, but it could be something big, and we'll find out soon. Something serious is happening in that region. But make a note of it. More oil fields in the middle of this story. I've already said it. Energy, energy, energy. And now, come back with me a few hours to the early morning. The night was intense. Do you know where? In northern Iraq, folks. In northern Iraq. Let me show you Iraq here. Just look at how much is happening in northern Iraq. The war is coming, okay? Against the Kurds, folks. The night was tough for the Kurds. Erbil, which is up here, has been hit night after night with drones and long-range ballistic missiles fired from Iran, from inside Iran. And this morning, 2 drones hit the headquarters of the Kurdish opposition party to the Iranian regime inside Iraqi Kurdistan. Drones that, according to local sources, took off from inside Iran near the border, folks. Near the border. In other words, there's a lot of fighting going on in this region, a lot of fire in the Erbil region, no victims, only material damage, and other camps of the Iranian Kurdish opposition were also hit in Erbil and Suleimania. 2 places there. And why the Kurds? You must be wondering, right, folks, who just tuned in? You don't know the reason the Kurds are involved now. Why are they being attacked? Here's the thing, folks. After the American statements about supporting the Kurds, do you remember that? The regime understood, the Iranian regime, that a ground operation in this region is just a matter of time. Do you remember that map that was released by the regime's side? Several forces invading from different places. So they already understood that, and that's why they're doing what they're doing. They're now targeting what they believe to be weapon depots before this ground movement begins. Take this as an interpretation, not as a fact, but it connects with 2 other strange movements happening inside Iran today. Movement 1. 6 ballistic missiles were launched from the Yazd region, which is in the center of the country, and so far no one has said where they were headed. If they hit somewhere, there have been no alerts anywhere. It could have been an internal exercise, or it could have hit something that no one can talk about, right? A base that's in the middle of the desert, a base hidden from everyone. Remember, there was a base inside Iraq being used by Israelis? That was revealed too. Did they hit something that no one has reported? So 6 ballistic missiles were launched, that's a fact, and they went somewhere. Movement 2, this is the one that intrigues us the most. Iranian authorities ordered the closure of the entire southern coastal strip of the country for 2 months. Pay attention to this, guys. I'm going to put it here for Iran. All of this here, guys, this entire coastal strip closed for 2 months. It's forbidden to approach the beaches for any purpose. Everything is under the control of the security forces. And now answer me this. Why would a country close its own coastline for 60 days? Could there be a ground incursion starting in the next few days? Maybe even today? Could it be that they received some kind of inside information, maybe from another country, from Russia or China, that this is going to happen at any moment? Yeah, they ordered this place to be closed for 60 days. So write that down, okay? And let's move on, because there are US implications here. The Wall Street Journal reported today, the Pentagon is considering drastically reducing its permanent military presence in Kuwait. Here, look. Pull everything out of there. Just look at the scale of this in historical terms, folks. For about 3 decades since the Gulf War, Kuwait has been one of the largest logistical centers for the American army in the entire world. Thousands of soldiers, tanks, and very large heavy equipment over there. And then came this confrontation with Iran, and Iran is launching hundreds of missiles and drones at Kuwait constantly. Power plants, the international airport, ports, and the desalination plants, folks, which produce more than 90% of the drinking water in this country. In a single strike in March, 6 American soldiers lost their lives at that location. Do you remember that? And Kuwait's oil exports, about 2 million barrels a day, have been halted since the closure of Hormuz. Stopped. Nothing is leaving from there. Consequently, the Pentagon has already pulled out some troops to lower their risk in the region. They're now discussing if the temporary move will become permanent. Remember, there was also talk about moving these American bases to Israel's Negev desert. And Kuwait, afraid of being left alone, rushed and did what? Signed a defense agreement with Pakistan, guys. That's what they did. A former Pentagon official summed up Kuwait's situation in just one sentence. They're stuck in a very tough spot. They want this to end, but they also want any threat from Iran to be gone. Pay close attention to what this truly means in the bigger picture as it relates to the statement from the former Security Council director I mentioned yesterday morning. The American presence in the Gulf, which for 30 years was a symbol of protection, has become a magnet for attacks. Wherever there are Americans, missiles and drones are coming in. And the strategic goal of the Iranian regime since 1979 has always been to push the Americans out of the region. The regime will present this surrender or this reduction of forces in Kuwait as a total victory. They'll promote that, of course, but consider the smart interpretation too. It exists and should be noted. The Americans are not leaving the fight, folks. They're removing the fixed target from the table. Those giant bases are fixed targets. They're taking them off the table. The firepower remains in the region, operating from locations within range of Iranian missiles but not targeting them now, including from Israel, as its defense minister has already confirmed. That, with fighter jets even taking off from the international airport. I showed you this here yesterday. Taking soldiers out of missile range is not a retreat. Only leftists believe that's some kind of retreat. It's about no longer making yourself a target without stopping the attacks, because that's happening at the same time. And look at the cost of this gamble for Iran. Each missile in Kuwait pushed the Sunnis closer together. And that's what really happened. You saw it yesterday, right, folks? 14 countries in a coalition under Saudi command, with the command of this coalition there in Saudi Arabia. This isn't the first time, folks. It happened in 2015 and it's happening again now. The same coalition against the Houthis. They fought the Houthis for nearly 10 years and have formed the coalition again. But now they're in a position of strength because Iran is no longer the same Iran it was in 2015. So the situation has changed a lot. And today the British newspaper The Guardian brought details about the upcoming Saudi operation in Yemen. The operation is big. Saudi forces, the Saudi Arabian army, were seen leaving the east of the country, and the interpretation of this movement is that they are regrouping for an offensive. And the likely target is a province in central Yemen that the Houthis took over in 2020. A big war is coming, folks. There's movement by sea and maybe by land to break the siege on Saudi oil in the Red Sea. The scenario we outlined last night is unfolding in real time and very quickly. And now, fitting into this scenario, there's the revelation published today by The Telegraph, the British newspaper. The United States and Israel are discussing the possibility of a land blockade of Iran. We need to fit the information together so it makes sense. For those who read this, it doesn't seem to have any connection with the Arab coalition. But pay close attention, folks. A land siege, folks. A land siege. Because according to the newspaper, this is one of the options that Trump and Netanyahu are considering to increase economic pressure on the Iranian regime. And in their meeting in the United States in the Oval Office this week, they discussed two types of approaches to deepen this pressure. The path of fire and the path of economic tightening, which means sanctions, blockade, and siege. And here is the detail that connects everything you've seen in this live stream. A land blockade would require the neighbors, remember the coalition, to tighten or close the borders, limiting the passage of goods. The neighbors, exactly the countries you just saw joining the coalition, pointing fingers and choosing sides against Iran and on the side of the Americans and Israel. Listen up, everyone. We need the neighbors for the plan to work, but that doesn't mean only Israel would enforce the blockade. Only Israel would send its own soldiers for this border siege, which won't happen, especially not with the United States. It's based on these countries' military forces, and the neighbors have already shown, they've already made it clear to everyone whose side they're on, right? And then the siege closes in from all sides. By sea, the more than 20 American warships that block the exit of Iranian oil through the Strait of Hormuz, right here in this region, right? They're still there. We block and keep going. Look at the number of ships here on the outside, and look at the number of ships on the inside. There's a blockade around Iran. These ships that are leaving here from Iran, they're going to turn around, folks. They're going to come back. I followed this here. They get about here and then go back to Iran again. There's no entry or exit of ships in this region. And in the sky, the American fighter jets that don't stop flying in this region. Let's see if there's any plane now. Look at the number of planes, folks. Look at this, my friends. Look at the number of military planes in this region here. They keep flying, even taking off here in Israel. Did you notice that the number of military planes increased here in this region? It's because they left this region here. And now they leave from Israel. What was missing in this whole story was the land. The borders closed by the neighbors. That's what was missing. That's the end of all this. If this plan here gets off the ground, Iran really becomes, in theory, an island, guys. It becomes an island. And now it's time for the question that also wraps up this live, this agreement. Let's keep talking about this Gaza agreement so we can close this live with the analysis from Tzvi Ezekiel. On one side, Trump calling this agreement historic. On the other, this morning, Tzvi Ezekiel, who for me is one of the greatest or the greatest Israeli expert on the Arab world. He is the greatest, guys. He is the greatest. He has lived this his whole life, okay? Later, he became a journalist. He's a man who literally spent his whole life within this Arab culture. He lived with the Arabs. Today, he brought up a word that's 1,400 years old. The word is Hudaybiyah. Hudaybiyah. Here's a quick 40-second lesson for you to understand this word because it's totally worth your attention. In the year 628, Muhammad signed a 10-year truce treaty with the tribe that controlled Mecca, over there in Saudi Arabia. Pay attention, everyone. He signed at a moment of weakness, accepting humiliating terms. Does that sound familiar with what's happening to them now? 2 years later, when he was stronger, the truce ended and Mecca was conquered. And since then, in the Arab world, this treaty of Hudaybiyah, Hudaybiyah, they call it the Hudaybiyah Agreement, which is the name given to an agreement signed from a position of weakness. Because it's an agreement we'll break once we're stronger. This became a rule in the Arab world, right? So let's sign the Hudaybiyah Agreement because it's signed from a position of weakness. When we gain strength, we'll break it. And it's not just a theory from books, guys. Arafat, remember Arafat? So in 1994, he publicly mentioned Hudaybiyah to explain to the Arabs what the Oslo Accords were and what that meant to him. That was exactly Tzvi Ezekiel's warning. I'll translate what he wrote, guys. Quote, an agreement with a terrorist organization is just a tactical pause by that organization because of temporary weakness on the way to its real goal. End quote. So, where do I stand here between Trump calling it historic and Biar Ezekiel's Tizvis, the Israeli analysts? I stand where this channel always stands, in the filter. And today the filter tells me something that gives me a glimmer of hope. There is realistic hope. Because whoever wrote this agreement knows this Arab strategy very well. The Arab strategy and all these agreements that they always break. Because the document doesn't ask for trust at any point. It conditions every Israeli withdrawal on a verified handover beforehand. And Trump himself said that. It's written in Trump's statement. He wrote exactly that. The surrender of weapons needs to be verified. Only then does Israel withdraw. He turns the weapons into scrap, into supervised storage. These weapons aren't going anywhere. They're going to be destroyed, okay? He turns them into brass, into scrap metal. He demands the maps of the tunnels, and he also writes down the option to return to combat if none of this is fulfilled. In other words, it's an agreement designed by people who expect to be betrayed. Do you agree with me? These are people who already know this could go wrong. In the Middle East, this is the only type of agreement likely to work, incredible as it may seem. To wrap up today's live, 27 minutes, right? Local time 2:02. For those who missed the beginning of this live, go back to the start. Watch it from the beginning, I promise you. You'll leave here understanding much more than you knew when you woke up. Much more about what's happening now in the Middle East. And to wrap up our Hebrew word of the day, it is mifran. Mifran. Miphan mifran. Alright? Mifran means exam. It means test. The announcement was made early this morning, and from now on, the agreement goes into testing, into its mifran. That's what's happening now. And the mifran has a date. Within weeks, the first delivery of weapons from Hamas. So let's keep that in mind, everyone, because there are 3 things for you to watch with me in the coming days. The first is the delivery. If it happens, when it happens, and what exactly will be delivered. Will this be shown in the media for everyone to see the weapons being handed over by Hamas? Okay, this doesn't solve the problem, right? The terrorist is still inside the Gaza Strip. The same terrorist is still there. He just handed over his weapon. His mindset is still the same, okay? The internal split within Hamas. How does the armed wing react to what the political wing failed to do? Will they accept it? And what about the center of Yemen, the Saudi movement that could open the next phase of this conflict? If this live stream is helping you, if it's helping you understand the whole day and last night, share it now. Send it to your family group and that friend who only saw historic or just reads headlines and thinks it's all over here. Because here we put the pieces together one by one in a way that the mainstream media doesn't do for anyone. Tonight I'll do another live, guys. It's Friday here and I'll go live again around 11 p.m. midnight in Israel, just like before. And in Brazil, on the other side of the world, and in Portugal, I think it's an hour earlier, right? Time zone. In Brazil, it will be around 5 or 6 in the afternoon, okay? So, live from Israel, straight from the mountains of Jordan. Just to wrap up, guys, because everyone has definitely seen what's happening over there in England, right? In that little Celtic country. Everyone is moving over to the side that actually belongs to Spain. That invasion that's happening over there. According to the governor, we're talking about more than 40,000 and they keep coming in. More than 40,000. So there are clashes over there. There's destruction happening in that place in Ceuta. And from there to Spain, it's just a quick hop. I'll mark it on the map so you can see. Here, guys, Strait of Gibraltar, okay? They crossed over to this little tip here. So this little tip here, look. Ceuta, they left Morocco and invaded these borders. This little piece here, guys, belongs to Spain. It's Spain, okay? This is Spain. Look here. Even the airport has the Spanish flag. This belongs to Spain. From here, they can reach the other side very easily, passing through the Strait of Gibraltar. And once they get here, they enter under Spain's own immigration rules and might even leave legally by plane to the other side. So they invaded this little piece of land here. That's what happened. And I'll tell you something. I really think there's an Iranian hand behind this. Okay? I think so. I think so. This didn't just happen out of nowhere. Some people are saying it was Trump. It has nothing to do with Trump, guys. It has nothing to do with Trump. What interest would he have in doing? In my opinion, there's an Iranian hand behind this. This didn't just happen suddenly, this explosion of people invading. Iran is behind this. And what's the purpose of it? In the long run, guys, in the long run, we know that Europe in the long run will stop being Christian, right? Europe won't be Christian anymore in the long run. It will be a Muslim Europe. Islamist, right? Maybe even a radical Islamist one. That's the direction if they don't wake up now. I think this invasion is a reality check for them over there. Because even an important woman over there in Europe who supports immigrants, supports everyone, has now called for the use of force immediately to put an end to this. Put an end to this completely now, okay? Look at what she wrote. Her name is, let me see here. Man, Ursula von der Leyen, I think that's how you say her name. She wrote the following. The images coming from Ceuta are unacceptable. We cannot allow anyone to enter the European Union without respecting our rules. It is necessary to put an immediate end to dangerous border crossings, dismantle human trafficking networks, and carry out quick returns of those who do not have the right to stay according to our rules. That's right, my friends. Where's the compassion for vulnerable immigrants she mentioned? It's about actions and words. The Spanish government will always defend this principle. So what is he saying, folks? That he'll accept everyone and everything is fine? That what happened is acceptable? This guy is totally crazy, folks. Totally crazy. More than 40% of the Spanish population declares themselves atheist, agnostic, or non-believer. That's right, Thomas. But now the good people are arriving, right? Only classy people. Sonia, thank you for the super sticker. Alexandra, thank you. Israel must attack. Shabbat shalom. Agnaldo, good afternoon. Davi, congratulations for bringing us honest and understandable information about what's happening on the internet. Thanks. Saduk Odayan from, thank you as well. Thank you for the super sticker. My friends, this is the president of the European Union, Maristela. Exactly, it's her. President of the European Union. Yeah, an attack also happened now in the Gaza Strip, okay? Against Hamas targets. So what happened over there isn't completely over yet. Let's see what else we have here. Yes, 15 hours after this whole Hamas story was announced, about the Israeli withdrawal and everything else, no joke, now Israel is attacking targets in the region. My friends, this is the live stream for now. If anything serious happens in the Middle East, I'll come back at any moment, okay? But I'll do another live stream today. Maybe I'll go to Jerusalem and do a live stream from there today. I'm not sure. Maybe tomorrow, okay? Maybe I'll do a live stream from there just to show you a little bit of Jerusalem's walls, because it's important to remember that they exist and are still standing. Hugs to my friends. See you next live stream.